Hello. Good evening, everybody, or good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are in the world. It's me, Tim Box. It's this month's not members live. It's this month's Anxiety Live Q&A. If you don't know me, I'm an anxiety therapist. I'm a mind coach. I'm a remedial hypnotist. I work every day one-to-one with clients to help them overcome their anxiety issues. And once a month, I go live on the channel here to answer your anxiety Q&As. I also put videos up every week, and I also have a members section to the channel where I do weekly members lives. But once a month, I go live on the whole channel so that everyone, even the people that have just accidentally discovered me online today, can just tap into whatever I can help you with in terms of your anxiety issues. I'll just say hello to everyone in the room first. Hello, Salvo. Hello, Joey. Hello, Diane. Good to see you. If you're coming into the room, please say hello. Even if you haven't got a question, say hi. Always nice to see who's in the room. And if you have a question, please chuck it in the comments, because I do have an absolute load of questions tonight that I would ideally like to get through if I can. Questions that have been left on my videos, but I will always prioritize the questions that are in the room. So the people that are actually watching live, so that you can get any issues that you want to get sorted. We might not have all the answers, but we'll have some sort of idea and some way of getting you on the right track. So with that in mind, then I'm going to start to work through comments that have already come in. Oh, hello, Matt. Right, let's just get started, shall we? I hope your week is going okay. Hope you're getting queued up for a nice, relaxing weekend. And by the way, if anything that I say as I go along makes any sort of sense, then please hit the thumbs up button, because it helps people discover the video, helps the algorithm prioritize this a little bit more. And if you already know that I'm going to say something that's going to be of value, why not share this video for other people, and just get more people in and getting help. Okay, right. Joey, let's start with your one then here. Let me put that up on the screen. I notice I often catch myself fixating on my thoughts, like I'm checking the thoughts going through my head. When I do this, it can start to feel like I ruminate and feel trapped. Sorry to hear that. What's a good way to release myself from this habit of focusing on mental processes like thinking itself that should be automatic? That's a really good question, because I think we can tend to over-fixate on our process. We only tend to do that when we start to question our process. There's no, if you think of so members of the channel will know this, but I think of, I've used the model of the conscious and the subconscious. And, we might think we're consciously in control, but it's our subconscious that is sailing the ship here. So what we become aware of, it's less about a conscious decision to monitor it. And it's more about our subconscious bringing it into our conscious awareness for what is perceived to be good reason. And oftentimes the reason that something comes into our mind, like, okay, what's going on with my thought process, is because we feel threatened by it. We feel there's something wrong with it. And to be fair, Joey, the fact you're asking me about this means, you probably do have this concern about your thought process. So my best advice here is, and I would extend this advice to things that we might call like intrusive thoughts as well. Whatever thoughts come forward that concern us, is that there's nothing actually wrong with having those thoughts. It's not an indicator there's something wrong with you, and it's worth recognizing that all the process that you're focusing on, all the things that are coming forward into your awareness, whether you're happy with them or not happy with them, or just unhappy that you're focusing on them so much, there's nothing malfunctioning about that. It's what your mind's meant to do. Your subconscious processing, you're processing like hundreds and hundreds of thoughts you're not even aware of at any given moment. Okay, there's a lot of action going on in the back of your mind, so to speak. Now, the fact these thoughts are coming into your awareness is just because you've become overly concerned about that very natural, ordinary process. So the thing I would suggest is that, it might feel very difficult to consciously stop doing that, because you're not consciously doing it. It's your subconscious that's doing it. But you can decide how you react to that. You can decide whether you allow that to bother you, or whether you remind yourself, well, that's okay. This is just what I'm doing right now. I'm in that habit. Because all the time that I want to get out of this habit, this is wrong, I shouldn't be doing this, then you're going to perpetuate it, because that bit of you that's saying, I think this is some sort of threat, is getting validated. Okay. And this is what we often talk about, don't we? The idea of like accepting anxiety, accepting the processes that go with it. It's not about saying I'm really happy that I'm thinking this way, because obviously we're not. That's why we're having this discussion, yeah. But it is about saying, because there's nothing wrong with that, I can accept that it's there at the moment. Because if I accept that it's there and I don't kind of, ruminate on it, I don't go back over it wondering why it's happening, then all those thoughts will pass on very quickly, and I'll just naturally find myself focusing on different things. So that would be my advice, Joe, is that it's only perpetuating itself because you're perceiving it to be a problem. So allow it to, allow space for it, allow room for it in your thinking. Yeah, accept that it's happening. Notice it if you like, and look on it instead of with fear or trepidation or concern. Look on it with curiosity. See how that works. But it's a difficult one because it's not like something I can tell you, okay, perform this action. And I think people that know me will know that that's not really my role that I play here. I don't say, okay, do this particular exercise or change this or that. It's about changing our understanding so that, oh, that's good. This stuff doesn't need to be of concern to me. And as a result, you'll just find yourself not focusing on it so much because it's of no concern. Yeah. People often tell me, actually, they'll say like, I went through a phase of high anxiety like years ago or something like that. And then I got the other side of it. And you'll say, well, how did you get the other side of it? And it's like, well, I don't know. I can't tell you really. I just stopped focusing on it at some point. And what tends to have happened is that at some point they've become so distracted by life's challenges coming their way that they haven't got time to ruminate on their own thought processes or their own feelings. And as a result, they've got out of that habit. And there's no part of them now perceiving it as a problem, because clearly it wasn't a problem because nothing has come of it. Our thoughts of concern about this particular set of processes that we've got going on just seem to have evaporated and gone, So that's probably the effect that you're trying to sort of consciously instigate, even though it's very much a subconscious process. Hope that helps, though. Hope that helps. Salvo, what you got here? Hi, Tim. I'm doing the progress one day at a time. Just today, I was thinking when I experienced intrusive thoughts to the point they were repetitive and painful. Do you think what made them stuck in my, part 2, awareness over and over again was the huge fear that I had of them? The fear of going back. It's always, okay, hang on, let me finish one. But I think they were also related to the exam stress that's not there anymore, luckily. Yeah, absolutely. It's literally what we were just saying. Funny, I know you typed that comment in before I started going on that long monologue, but it applies, doesn't it? It's because we're afraid of them that we fixate on them and that we go over them. Yeah, it's not anything to worry about. There's literally nothing to worry about your thought process, whether the thoughts are uncomfortable for you or even painful for you. Yeah, and people oftentimes will say to me, but I don't think I should be having these thoughts. It's not just that I'm fixating on the what ifs or things like that. It's like I might be fixating on things that are quite distressing. Like, what does it mean that I'm having these thoughts? Does it mean I'm a bad person? Does it mean there's something wrong with me? And ultimately, it is your job, your mind's job, to bring you all of these weird and horrific thoughts. Yeah, and I say bring them to you, not to bring them into your conscious awareness, but to have them so it can dismiss them. Yeah, you're constantly having thoughts that you're never aware of, because your mind is contemplating certain things, entertaining certain possibilities, and then rejecting the ones that just don't apply. The only difference here is that because you've become concerned about your thinking process, like you're saying, oh, I don't want to go back. I don't want to get back to that place I was in before. Because of that, a bit of you is saying, oh, is this thought worth bringing into the conscious awareness? Is this thought worth showing to the captain to get some clarification on? Because I think this is a threat. I think the message we've received is that these sorts of thoughts shouldn't be here. They are threatening. Therefore, we need to pay attention to them. Yeah, when actually it's just a natural part of the process. Yeah, so, but again, it's the same message is there. Allow them to be. Let them be there. You don't have to try and get rid of them, because it's not that your mind's not meant to be having those thoughts. The only difference is whether you consciously focus on them or not. So notice them, sure, but you don't have to then put conscious focus on them because they're not threatening you in any way. Okay, I hope that helps. Gabrielle, good evening. Oh, good evening, Anka. I'm saying good evening to everyone. I don't know what bit of the world you're in, so it might be morning for you where you are. So apologies, but it's evening here, so I'm saying good evening. Gabrielle, do you have any advice for anxiety about free time and no plans? I know it sounds silly, but I find myself the most anxious when I'm alone and have no plans or distractions to focus on. Right, that doesn't sound silly at all, because that's very, very common. A lot of times, a lot of like anxiety therapists will advocate the idea of distraction. I don't necessarily, the word distraction doesn't resonate with me. Yeah. But the idea of getting on with life without pausing to examine anxiety. The reason why people, when they get free time, are so increasingly anxious is because now I'm going to notice my anxiety, whatever the associated sensations are. Yeah, they might be physical sensations, there might be thought processes going on, but whatever is going on with you that you associate with, oh, that's anxiety, as soon as you stop and you stop to look around, if your mind is feeling threatened by those sensations or those responses, then you're going to start looking for them. As a result of looking for them, you're probably going to create them. Yeah, it's a bit like if I were to say, right, I think there's an intruder in my house at night. Yeah, I need to check every room. Now I'm going to be opening those doors to every room with a tremendous amount of trepidation if I think there's an intruder in one of them. So I'm going to create the fear, even though I don't know if there's anyone there. Yeah, if I were just looking for my keys, I'm going to open the door very easily and not have fear involved. But it's because we're like, oh, if I pause, if I stop, I'm going to find an intruder in there. Then now we're creating the anxiety that we're trying not to find. It isn't like the anxiety just exists there, and if we're busy, we can distract ourselves from it. Yeah, it doesn't exist without you going there, looking for it, without you feeling anxious about it being there. And that's important, because I think when people talk about distraction, they're often talking about, if I'm busy, I can distract myself from my anxiety that is just there. It's almost like there's a fire in the corner of the room. If I keep busy, I won't notice it. And that's not it at all. Yeah, there is no fire. And literally the only reason there would be a fire is if you fueled it with the oxygen of your attention. Yeah, it's almost, think of it more like anxiety is the little burning embers in the corner that are doing nothing. You have no reason to pay attention to. But if you do pay attention to them, if you stop and you say, right, all I've got to do now is pay attention to anxiety, then you will create the flame. You will create the anxiety that you're most fearful of. Yeah. And again, why would we do that? Because we're worried about it, because it's the fearful thing, because it's the thing we perceive to be wrong with us. Okay. So, oh, good evening, George, as well, by the way. I missed you. So the thing I would say, my advice here is be okay with finding anxiety. Yeah. Recognize it's not an intruder that is there to harm you. It's actually a friend. Yeah. Anxiety isn't a malevolent presence. Yeah. It's just a bit of you that is in some way trying to focus your attention on something important. Yeah. And that's not a bad thing at all. Sometimes it will focus your attention on things that you're like, that isn't important. Why are you focusing my attention on that? That's a really weird thing to do. Yeah. But just because your mind makes mistakes doesn't mean it's malfunctioning. It doesn't mean it's malevolent. It just means, yeah, sometimes we feel overly anxious about things we know we shouldn't feel anxious about. Okay. But yeah, I think, Gabrielle, the more you just allow yourself to be and sit with whatever anxiety there is, the more comfortable you'll be in its presence. And as a result, the less threatening it will appear to you. I hope that makes sense as well. But a good question, though. I think a lot of people feel that as well. It's a very common experience. I wonder if I should make a video about that. The fear of sort of quiet downtime because of it, because I think that's an important one. It probably demands a bit more of a deeper dive, I think, maybe. Anchor. Hi, Tim. Can you change your subconscious? You absolutely can. And we constantly are, funnily enough. Yeah, we can't not change it. And what I mean is we can't not change our processes. Okay, if we think of so a very common analogy is like your brain like a computer, isn't it? Yeah, your mind like a computer that we're programming. So if we use that analogy for a minute, yeah, we are constantly reprogramming that computer because we are constantly inputting data via our five senses. So we are constantly changing the learnings that are going on up here. And then you might say, well, why do we get stuck in certain things? Well, because there are certain beliefs that we hold that are very key to us. So there might have been things we learned when we were younger, or when we were just a blank sheet of paper that hadn't been written on yet. You know, when we were fresh out of the factory and a computer with no data inputted yet. You know, so those core things that were first inputted, they're part of our, you know, our map of reality. If you, I'm mixing metaphors furiously here, aren't I? Apologies. But, you know, our map of reality, our idea about how the world works is based on certain ideas. And so when something comes in that contradicts it, you know, our mind works well enough so that it can't just accept two contradictory ideas as both true. Yeah, you can't. You're not. If I say if something that's black, you're not going to be able to tell me it's white, because they're contradictory. I know black from white, that kind of thing. And what happens is, the reason why it does get stuck sometimes is because certain ideas hold sway. For example, maybe we think it's really important that everyone likes us. Yeah, that might have been an early thing we learned, because after all, it was important that mum and dad liked us because they were keeping us alive. It was important that the people at school liked us, because if they didn't, we might get bullied, and that would be a horribly negative experience. Yeah, it was important that the person who we went to get the job with liked us so that they would employ us, all that sort of thing. So maybe we have this, like, one of our key important principles is that make sure everyone likes you, as many people as possible. And now we feel massively anxious about that, and we feel on edge if we think someone doesn't like us. Yeah, and so maybe we want to update that idea and say, well, no, actually, I don't think it's important that this random stranger on the internet likes me. But we've got that in our mind. So we get a negative comment on something on something we post, and it really upsets us. Oh, they don't like me. That's terrible, because my map of reality says I must be liked. You know, things like that. So, but we are constantly changing our subconscious, whether we like it or not. Change is this inevitable process that occurs. Absolutely, you can see it happening in front of your eyes. Just, you know, talking about social media and online. You know, if you're on Facebook still, it does that thing, doesn't it? 7 years ago, you were here doing this thing, and you look at the picture and think, Jesus Christ, that was me. I don't even relate to that person anymore, because your thinking has advanced so far that you look back on the old versions of yourself and you can't believe how far you've come in terms of how you've evolved your thinking. Yeah, but it's constantly happening, just little bit by little bit. But we absolutely can change those things that seem stuck at the moment, because it's about invalidating the reason why we still believe them when we know they're not true. Yeah, if that makes sense. But you absolutely can. Yeah, I do it every day with clients. That's what we work on: changing their anxiety response, changing the way their subconscious is operating. You can't just switch a subconscious out for another subconscious. You know, you got the same brain, but you know, I don't think they don't do brain transplants yet, do they? One day. Hello, Christine. Hello, Mia Hadi. Am I saying that right? I don't know. And okay, I'm not going to be able to say that name. Eberachukwu. I've said that wrong. Apologies. I probably butchered that name. Sorry. Sam, good evening. Will, hello. Right. I've said everyone that's commented, I've said hello to everyone. Let me look at Diane. You were the next one on the list for comments here. Tim, when I traveled last month, I noticed my anxiety on the plane vanished ASAP when the pilot spoke out to mention where we were flying over. I was excited to see new landscape, and the anxiety was gone. Yeah, so that falls in line with what we're saying about, you know, kind of distraction being something. I think it's more about a better point of focus, something that seems more immediate and more worthy of your attention. Yeah, that's what your mind is doing, is trying to put your attention where it needs to go. And if there's large parts of your thinking that know you're not under any threat, then as soon as you get a good positive point of focus, those parts will hold sway, and they'll point you in a different direction. Okay. Yeah, but I'm glad. That's nice, isn't it? Maybe something good to remember there. Not just because I'll distract myself, but because actually my mind doesn't have to fixate on this. And look, the world didn't end, and the flight went okay, and it was nice. In fact, it was pleasant. That's always nice to notice, isn't it? Right. Hey, Tim, from the last few weeks, I'm getting thoughts that, is that me who was suffering from anxiety from the last 2 years? And now I don't know how these 2 years passed so fast. Now I'm having anxiety. Hang on, let me get them. I'm not able to realize that I grew up. I feel how it happened so fast, as well as I think, who is me? Am I a brain, etc.? Now I fear what if this all continued, my college will get ruined. So here's the thing I would suggest here. You're kind of doing that meta thinking where you're thinking about thinking, from the sounds of it. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with doing the deep stuff. I studied philosophy at university. Yeah, there's nothing inherently wrong with asking yourself the big questions. But please realize that there's no answers that you're going to get categorically here. You're not going to uncover any deeper truths. And whatever process you're going through is perfectly valid. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. And I would suggest as well, fearing what if this all continued. Again, you're fearing the fear. You're doing what we would call the second fear. You're perceiving anxiety to be the enemy or the illness or the condition that you've been afflicted with. And now you're wondering, what if this continued? Anxiety is not something that happens to you. It's something that you do. You need to remember that. There's a part of you actively hitting the high anxiety button or the panic button or whatever it might be. There's a part of you creating a fear response about this stuff. Remind that part that nothing of this is to be feared. Anxiety can't hurt you, can't damage you, it can't kill you. It's just one of your emotions. And I would suggest feeling anxiety and feeling anxious about, your future, your college, your schooling, things like that. That's very natural. That's not a sign of an anxiety disorder. That's a sign of you caring, giving a shit about your progress in life. Nothing wrong with that. The more you lean into the fact that, hey, the more I do, the more I learn, the better I get at facing challenges, the more faith you restore in yourself, the less anxious you will feel. So don't fall into that trap of constantly framing everything that you attempt to do as, here I am, this person with anxiety trying to do this thing. No, it's you doing the thing. And if you feel anxious about it, good. It means you care. Yeah. It ain't going to stop you doing anything. Funny enough, the desire for that part of you that's creating the high anxiety is that you do it and you do it well. So fulfill that promise, You'll do it. Believe in you and your ability to overcome challenges, because the more you do, the more evidence you get that you can. Yeah. Hope that helps. Joey, agreed, Tim. It's really getting back into over-intellectualizing the process. I think I spent so long focusing on what my thoughts and emotions are that I turned it into a doing rather than something my brain simply just does. I think it's me trying to look for an answer I don't need to get. That's exactly it. You probably just articulated better there the point I was trying to make, Joey. You're trying to look for an answer to something that you don't need an answer to. Yeah, there is no... the biggest question anxiety is asking you is, are we okay? Am I okay? Yeah. The answer is yes. Because if the only reason you fear you're not okay is because you're anxious, the answer is always yes, you're okay. Yeah. That's not something wrong with you feeling anxious. That's being human. But yeah, good bit. It's a nice bit of realization when you recognize that. If you ever find yourself, by the way, asking yourself the question, or am I overthinking this? You can almost guarantee you are. Because if you've got to the point where you've said, am I overthinking it? You're probably overthinking it. Yeah. I'm a big fan of underthinking. Yeah. And this comes from a natural overthinker. My wife, Britt, she always says you think about thinking about doing things. Which, if you knew me, perfectly describes my process. But I like it when we can underthink, when we can just say, okay, this is how it is. Let it be, It's amazing how quickly anxiety dissipates and diminishes when we stop fearing or questioning why we're feeling so anxious. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying ignore the part of you that's saying, oh, pay attention to this important thing, because that's the important bit, listening to the message, understanding, oh, that's what it is. But when the bit of us that's saying, pay attention to this important thing, the thing it wants you to pay attention to is how anxious you are. Okay. That's not something we need to focus on or pay attention to. That's not an answer. That's not a question we need answered. Yeah. Right. Next one. Tim, I feel anxious when my blood pressure is about to be taken, and when I'm anxious, it becomes high. Now I'm not even able to take it at home because I'm super anxious too. Again, I've okay. Yeah. That's a very common thing. A very common thing. For and in fact, you'll find doctors and nurses, won't you? They'll tell you if your blood pressure is high or in anything other than low, they'll take it again, because they're like, yeah, loads of people with their blood pressure spikes when they go to take it. But again, it's like, why are you worried about your blood pressure? I mean, I don't know if you've got a medical issue and you have to take your blood pressure for, and you need an accurate reading. Okay, fair enough. I get that. But loads of people are taking their blood pressure or wearing one of these things on our wrists because they're really worried about heart rate, or, what would you call it? Heart rate variability, when they sleep and things like that. And it's like, it doesn't actually tell you anything of any importance, but we overfixate on these things. Yeah. And again, I would suggest that if this is not something that you need to have, medically speaking, then don't even, okay, so my blood pressure spikes because I get nervous about it. Okay, that's okay. That's not a malfunction. Your body is responding to feeling under threat. And I know you don't feel under threat from the blood pressure machine, but you feel under threat from what the result might be. Is my blood pressure too high? Is it too low? That sort of thing. But your body is functioning perfectly well because it's increasing the adrenaline when you feel under threat. That's a very natural, healthy response. The only mistake here is that your mind has mistakenly perceived this as being in some way threatening to you. And that's perpetuated by the idea that now I've got a problem with blood pressure monitors. And it's just, let go of that. It doesn't matter if you have. I would suggest lower the stakes here. Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. I don't know if that was a full answer or not, but Sam, you mentioned, I should make a video of the fear of being alone and facing yourself. Yeah, I'll do one of them. I think that's a good one. Will, what you got for me? Hi, Tim. Any advice for starting a job? Been a big problem of mine for a long time, and the thought of doing pretty much anything makes me so anxious. Well, here's the thing. Will, I would be, if you were like a one-to-one client of mine, my instant thing I want to ask you is, okay, why have you got that fear? Where did that start? What's the basis of that? Because that's what your mind is telling you. Mind is telling you, okay, I don't like this. I don't like this situation. I've got doing anything makes you. But here's the thing as well. Doing something new is going to make you anxious, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, we all have a fear of doing something that we have no experience of doing, or trepidation or doubt about whether we can or not. My suggestion here would be to lean back on that thing that we all have, which is our experience of being inexperienced, our experience of going into new situations that feel terrifying and then making them pretty ordinary. The classic example that everyone uses is the first day at school. Yeah, first day at school was terrifying. Didn't know what to expect. Then we did it. We were terrified. We got over that. And then we did it every day for years, to the point where it just became the tedious, boring thing that we had to do every day. Maybe we enjoyed it. Maybe we're one of those people that loved school. We met new friends. We made lasting connections with people. We learned things that will keep us in good stead for all of our life. But initially, of course, it was terrifying. And that was okay, I think. I don't think any parent looks at their child who is worried about going to school the first day and says, what on earth is wrong with them? Why are they so worried? I went to school for years. It was fine. It's like, no, because, you go towards something and you're going to feel anxious about it. A bit of your mind is going to say, whoa, can we do this? Guess what? The spoiler alert, you can, because you have. You've done hundreds of things in your life for the first time that you didn't know if you could do, and then you've made them boring and commonplace. I would lean back on that little bit of information. Yeah. Because you look at yourself and you think, oh, I haven't done anything. I haven't done a job. I haven't done this particular, but you've done loads of things for the first time and made it pretty much ordinary for you. God, if we went through everything in our life that we took on for the first time, and we were worried about, can we do this? And then how easy it became, how normal it became, All right. Let me just see if, hang on. I'm scrolling. Hang on. Bear with. Anchor, you're coming back on what we were saying. Thank you so much for your answer. You've helped me a lot. I'm almost off my meds. I decided no more, but I've watched your videos and it's helpful. You've changed my life. Oh, I'm so pleased. That's what the channel's there for. The whole point of the channel is that I see clients one-to-one every day, but there's only a limited amount of people I can help one-to-one. So yeah, the whole point is that it's helping people and helping them experience changes. I'm so pleased you're almost off your meds as well. I should say, caveat here, I don't advise on medication because I'm not a doctor. I was literally recording a video today where I had a section. Don't confuse me here as giving medical advice. I'm not a doctor, but we know enough, don't we, to know that we're not anxious because we're not on the right meds. We're anxious because of our psychology and our circumstances. Yeah, the mixture of one or the other or both of those things. So meds can help, and I'm sure they have helped you, and that's why you're still taking them in some capacity, because they've helped you to some degree. I mean, the right meds at the right time have saved people's lives. We know that, don't we? But that isn't the solution. Yeah, that isn't going to fix the psychological process that is keeping you in that place right now. So I always love hearing when people are like, great, I've thrown the meds away, hopefully with the doctor's consultation, and the doctor has advised, they've advised the best way of doing that for you. But yeah, it's great, isn't it? What a liberating experience that is. What a great self-esteem boost it is to realize we're not going to have these for the rest of our life as well. We're not going to have to feel dependent on medication to regulate our emotional responses. Superb. Well done. You feel very good. You should feel very proud of that. Tonight, SL, good evening. I'm literally just anticipating questions for some reason. What are your thoughts on anxiety meds? My doctor just advised it. Therapy's going okay, but I'm losing patients being only 20 years old and having severe anxiety. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Basically, I think I've just given them, haven't I? I think I've preempted it there. But again, if it's right for you at this time, yeah, absolutely. My thoughts on doctors advising it. If a psychiatrist advises it, I'm a little more comfortable with that, because a psychiatrist is a doctor that also has years of, mental health training. A doctor isn't necessary. And I only say this because I've spoken to doctors about it. I've trained doctors in the way I work. And they don't necessarily feel tremendously equipped to diagnose an emotional, psychological, or mental health issue, because that's not their field. Yeah, it would be like me saying, "Oh, come here, I'll tell you if you've got a broken arm or not." I don't know, do I? So it's like, I always say it with a pinch of salt when the doctor says, "Oh, take these meds," because that's all the doctor's got at the end of the day. If they'll check you out physically to check that your racing heart rate and your tension in your muscles and your chest pains aren't actually a medical issue and it's an anxiety thing. And then they're like, okay, it's anxiety. We've got these meds, and that's it. But it isn't necessarily the solution. It might, absolutely, meds can help you. Get the right meds, as I say, it absolutely help you. And don't fear them. There's certain meds that I wouldn't, Christ, like you hear absolute horror stories about, but hopefully you have a clinician who is responsible and who is who wants to do the right for their patient, but I think my thoughts are always these: there's nobody that's born needing medication to not feel excessively anxious. At some point you went through something that caused you to feel excessively anxious. Let's work on that. Yeah, let's change that pattern of thought. Let's upgrade the patterns in your subconscious so that they're not happening anymore. But again, don't confuse it for medical advice. I don't give medical advice, but those are my thoughts on medication. I mean, you probably, if you're here, you might have seen my TED talk, and I touched briefly on it. The thing I didn't get to say was that I'm not dismissing meds. I think a few people that watched that video thought I was dismissing meds. I was saying, don't get medication, don't go to the doctor. My point was, yeah, go to the doctor, because the doctor's going to help you in terms of recognizing that all those physical sensations you've got going on aren't a medical ailment. So weight lifted off our shoulders. Brilliant. The only problem is then when they diagnose you with an anxiety issue, and I'm always like, take that with a pinch of salt, because for a start, an anxiety disorder is not a permanent state, or you weren't born with a disorder. You've gone through something, and now your current thoughts, feelings, and responses fall within the category of anxiety issue. Yeah, which, to be fair, you could almost always classify it as basically you've become most anxious about how anxious you feel. That's it. Okay. But any diagnosis of a disorder is a very temporary one, because tomorrow you might understand this to the degree now where, okay, my thoughts, feelings, and responses now no longer seem to fall into the category of anxiety issue or anxiety disorder, because I've updated my process, which we're doing all the time, as I said earlier in the live. Yeah. So it's like, if it feels right for you, go for it, you know? And get the medication to help you, and always, but if you're going to do that, keep close contact with your clinician, with your doctor, because it's something that should be monitored. It's not a permanent fix. You're not meant to be like, oh, here's anxiety meds, enjoy these for the rest of your life. That's not how it's meant to work. Yeah, whether it's depression or anxiety, medication is not meant to be permanent. It's meant to be like, okay, this I think is going to help you through this difficult time. But hey, let's get the psychological work done as well, so that there'll be a point where you're ready to come off these and go and live a long and happy life. That's the point here. Yeah. So that's my thoughts. Probably more thoughts than I should be giving on that, probably. But you did ask, so it's very rare that I give a quick answer, isn't it? Those that know me. Matt, mate, I'm slowly making progress on getting out of the house. I got a 2-year-old Labrador, is that? And I've started walking. Yeah, it is 2 or 3 times a day, pushing myself out a little further each week. Thanks for that. That's lovely. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. And when you do that stuff, Matt, really big yourself up, pat on the back here, feel proud of that. Every step you take forwards is a huge achievement. Yeah. Feel good about that. And every time you get home, realize, hey, look, the world didn't end. I did that. That wasn't as unpleasant as I was predicting it was going to be. Yeah, if we're going to do this slowly and going to do the kind of gradual exposure thing, then let's make each exposure worth its effort. Yeah. Hey, I enjoyed that. Turns out outside isn't a place to fear. Outside is a place to enjoy. That kind of stuff. Yeah. Remind your crew up here that they're doing a good job, and that they can relearn all this stuff that they thought they'd learned previously. I take a sip of tea. It's gradually going cold. That's when I know it's time to stop the live, because my tea's gone cold, but it's okay at the moment. Salva, I'm practicing the control system. As I understood, it can be used for so many things in our reality, like self-esteem, I think, and every subconscious process and emotion. It's awesome. I'm really pleased you're getting to grips with that. So for those of you, Salvo's in the members area, and in the members area, we have the full tutorial how to use the control system, which is a kind of a hypnotherapeutic method, but it doesn't involve trance, but it uses direct phenomena-based processes to communicate directly with your subconscious. And I always encourage people to learn that process. It's the way I work with clients, in terms of I utilize that system with them. And it's how we get very, very fast changes in our subconscious processing, by connecting directly with the part of us that is triggering the responses that we feel are inappropriate or unwanted. Understand why that part is doing it, change them. So I'm really pleased you're getting some success with that. And yeah, anything that involves a subconscious process, you can change using that method. In the same way, any therapeutic process can influence any part of your emotional, psychological, and mental well-being. It shares those traits. Okay, Teresa, good evening, Teresa. Hello, everyone. Tim, although I'm doing better, I have anxiety daily. At times it's high. I've had a lot of medical appointments, and I think my crew is very vigilant. How to calm them down again? Right. Stop saying I have anxiety would be my first bit of advice there, Teresa. I think you know a bit better than that. We don't have anxiety. We feel anxious. Yeah. If you say you have anxiety, then you're talking about like I have a cold, or I have a disease, or I have a problem. It's like you don't have anger, do you? You don't have frustration. You feel angry. You feel frustrated. Yeah, we have feelings, we have emotions. So, and you're meant to feel anxious daily, by the way. The only reason you feel highly anxious at the moment is because the challenges seem slightly harder to you, because you feel in some way hindered by your own emotional processes. Probably because you keep telling yourself you have anxiety as well. Yeah. So at times it's high. Yep. At times it will be. And everyone on the planet will experience high anxiety. And I appreciate, I think you've got every justification to at times feel high anxiety, because you've got medical appointments, and you're, like you say, your crew's being really vigilant. They're like, okay, how am I feeling at this moment? How am I doing at this time? Oh, I've got an itchy shoulder, sorry. So yeah, you're essentially, your subconscious is putting your focus on how you feel. I think how to calm them down again. Let it be. Yeah, I've said this a lot tonight, haven't I? Let your mind be concerned about that stuff, but also remind yourself that there are only limited amounts of time where you have to engage with that. Yeah, you get this all the time. People that are anxious about medical process, so my wife Britt the other day, she had she had one of those moles that she wanted to get checked out. They did a little biopsy, and they were like, okay, we'll get the results in 4 to 6 weeks. Now, she had an option there, didn't she? She could worry about that for 4 to 6 weeks, or she could get on with living her life, and her mind could recognize, well, I don't even have to engage with any of those thoughts now for 4 to 6 weeks, because that's the next thing in this journey. The next, installment of this story comes when they ring me back. Yeah. And it will either be cool, everything's fine, or it will be right, we need to do this and that. And that's when I need to get engaged with the process again. But again, I'll probably only need to get engaged with the process for a few moments in terms of going somewhere, getting something done, and then coming away again. Yeah. So it's like there's these little bursts of attention that this particular issue requires. So remind yourself that, okay, whilst I'm not actually there doing something, there's other people that are taking care of the things that need to be taken care of. What is almost like you've hit the ball back over the net. You don't have to worry about the ball now until it comes back over the net to you. Yeah. So, and it's about that, control the controllables, focus on the things you can control, ignore the things you can't control. Yeah. Or just remember that sort of stuff. By the way, the biopsy came back fine and it was good, which came back today. So that's why it's on my mind. That's why I've used that example. And all going well, your medical appointments will come back well, and it will go smoothly. We might as well assume they will, because that's what happens most of the time. Hope that helps, Teresa. Christine saying it's scary how much it can stop you living. I presume you're talking about anxiety. If we let it, it's only a bit of you that's afraid. Yeah. It's amazing how much a frightened child can stop you sleeping unless you calm that child's fears. What are you doing to calm the fears of that part? Are you treating anxiety like it's getting in your way, like it's stopping you, like it's deliberately holding you back? Or are you treating it like the frightened child that, oh, hang on, I need to allow that part to calm down. I need to reassure that part. I need to be captain of my ship here and let the crew know everything is okay. I think too often we assume I feel anxious, so there must be something wrong. And the captain takes the lead of the crew here. The conscious takes the lead of the subconscious. I don't feel right. I feel tense, or I feel there's something wrong, or something like that. Or I'm thinking about this thing, and what about that? And then it just freaks you consciously out. You get consciously aware of it. When you can do it the other way as well, because kind of that's what you're meant to do. These parts of your subconscious that are bringing forward these concerns, they're not saying, oh no, this is going to happen badly. They're saying, hey, are we okay? Is this going to go badly? You can answer that question. Calm that part of yourself. Reassure that part of yourself. If you know that these fears are unwarranted, allow that part to feel heard, but allow it to be comforted and calmed as well. Hope that helps. Hang on. Joey, when you're more anxious, scenarios and thoughts will come up that don't even make sense once you move to a calmer state. Yeah, isn't that the way? It's really interesting how perception changes how you see these scenarios. I totally get you what you're saying there, Joey, because the example I always use is that I had this was a couple of years ago now, at least. It might have been longer than that, actually. And I found myself like lying awake. I'd woken up in the night and my mind had just latched onto a thought, and there was a bit of me that was thinking, oh, I need to remember to do that thing then. Yeah, because that's going wrong at the moment. I need to do that to mitigate that. And I was sitting there and I thought, oh, I'm not going to go. So I picked my phone up and I made a little note on my notes page on my phone that I have. And I was like, right, hopefully that will calm this guy down and he'll realize we're not going to forget that. We're going to do that. Unfortunately, it did. That part of me was like, okay, that's fine. And I got back to sleep. I was able to leave that thought alone. But then when I woke up in the morning and I looked at what I'd written in my notes, it made reckon 0 sense at all. I mean, it didn't make sense. It didn't make no sense as in banana, carrot, giraffe or something like that. But it was like, It was like clearly that thing that I thought was a good idea was not a good idea at all. And even the thing that I was worried about wasn't anything to be worried about. Yeah, it was just like in the middle of the night, at that moment when the only bit of me that's awake is the bit that has the fear, the calm, rational, logical, conscious part of me wasn't necessarily operating on all cylinders, firing on all cylinders here, and it wasn't necessarily providing the answers. And now, whenever I find myself awake thinking about something, I remind myself of that. I remind my crew. I'm like, so you remember that time when we thought we really needed to worry about this thing? Maybe we revisit this topic in the morning, because I don't think we're going to come up with any solutions. And I suspect in the morning we might realize we didn't need to come up with any solutions at all, actually. And that kind of just calms me instantly now. So like, and this is the process. We learn, we grow, we evolve. That's what we've got to allow our mind to do. But I've said this before, but it's like up here is like the Starship Enterprise. Yeah. When you're in a highly anxious state, all of your crew aboard your Enterprise are just running to battle stations. They don't know what they're afraid of. They don't know what the danger is. Kirk's hit the red alert on the bridge. Kirk knew what the danger was, but no one else does. So every part of our mind is just looking out the window, looking for Klingons. Apologies if you're not a fan of Star Trek or the 60s version of Star Trek, because that's my reference point there. But the point being is that our mind now is looking at everything with a mind of what threat is that going to give me? What threat is that going to? Is that the threat over there? Is that the danger that we're worried about? And we look at things that previously didn't seem threatening, but now suddenly hold all this threat for us. Yeah, but it's just because we're in that state of mind where our mind's job at the moment is to discover where the threat's coming from. Yeah. So yeah, when we look back on it, when we're calm again, it's like, man, what was I thinking? Nothing wrong there at all. As he saw, good evening. Hi, Tim. Why I feel more anxious in the morning and panic attack triggered at morning? Okay, the reason you feel more anxious at the morning, I've actually got a video on this about morning anxiety. First of all, and in the video, I talk a lot about, okay, you start the day, maybe. Okay, there's three main reasons, if I remember correctly in the video. First of all, you've got the day ahead of you. You've got everything that you need to do, and maybe you're not looking forward to that. Yeah. Secondly, you might now be used to waking up and looking for anxiety. Oh, I know anxiety strikes in the morning. So what I might end up doing is waking up and thinking, how anxious am I feeling today? And of course, that's an anxious thing to do. It's like that looking through the house for the intruder thing that I was talking about. Now you're creating the anxiety that you're hoping not to be there just by looking at it. It's an anxious activity. Okay. But the third reason, probably the most obvious reason that most anxiety experts will tell you, is that when we wake up in the morning, we get a boost of cortisol, the stress hormone. Yeah. And so if I'm, again, not a doctor, but this is how I understand it. At night, when it gets dark and there's no light shining on our retinas, we produce melatonin, which is the hormone that puts us to sleep. Okay. And our stress levels reduce. So cortisol levels reduce because we're not doing anything where our activity has ceased. Yeah. So if we remain busy, even though it's dark, and we're there's a bit of us wanting to increasing our melatonin levels, if our cortisol remains high, we'll remain awake because we're busy, we're engaged in something, whether it be thoughts or actions. Okay. But when we stop, cortisol levels decrease and we go to sleep. Then when the sun comes up, melatonin level production reduces. And what happens then is your body gives you a cortisol spike to wake you up, to get you going. And oftentimes when we're really sensitive to these things, especially if we've experienced a lot of anxiety in the mornings, then it doesn't cause panic, but it can create sensations that then cause us to panic. Yeah, it isn't like the boost that I get in the morning is a panic attack. No. There's something that happens first. There's a cortisol boost. Then a bit of your mind says, uh-oh, what was that? That felt like high anxiety. That felt like panic ensuing. And then we hit the panic button because we perceive panic to be the big threat. So that's why it happens. So again, the way we overcome this is we recognize that, yeah, I'm going to feel more adrenalized and more full of cortisol in the mornings because that's my body's job to get me going. It's doing the thing it's meant to do. And the reason I'm noticing it at the moment is because, hey, I've inadvertently programmed my mind to notice this stuff because I've got concerned about it. That's why just a slightly more adrenalized state turns into a panic because we're worried about the sensations. But none of this is a malfunction at all. It's just you've become over-focused on that process. But yeah. I hope that makes sense. Good question, though. A lot of people talk about that. But yeah, find my video with my anxiety in the morning, or morning anxiety, something like that. Waking anxiety, it might be one of those things. Right. How are we doing? Oh, there's a lot of stuff coming in. Because I want to, I should, tell you what, I'll shut up and get on with the questions, shall I? Teresa, Tim, I've had so many symptoms in the past month that I think at the end they're all due to anxiety. Each time I feel I'm much better, a new symptom shows up, lots of visual disturbances, high cortisol, dizziness, fatigue, etc. It gets so confusing to figure out what's anxiety related and what's not. Yeah, you know what, Teresa? I think you might be right. Because, okay, again, for the full disclosure for the people that aren't in the members area, Teresa's in the members area, and we've had some discussions about this, haven't we? And yeah, okay, it may have started with a legitimate medical issue that you needed to get sorted. But of course, when we're in a highly adrenalized state, there's a whole host of, symptoms, I say in inverted commas, I don't like the word symptoms, but there's a whole host of sensations that come with that. So, we do have dizziness, fatigue. So dizziness for a start, because when we are highly anxious, we have this thing called vasoconstriction, where our blood vessels constrict to move the blood into the areas that it's required. Yeah, and it prioritizes like the major muscle groups and the major organs. Yeah, so this is why we often feel dizzy or lightheaded, because the blood isn't easily flowing to our brain anymore, because we're more concerned with physical response rather than, hey, let's think through this problem really carefully. It's a evolutionary fight or flight response that's going on. Fatigue, if you exist in a highly adrenalized state for too long, it's going to exhaust you. People suffer like burnout and things like that, emotional, psychological, physical burnout, often because they're living a stressful existence. And what that means is they're living on adrenaline, and the adrenaline is what fatigues them to the point where they've just got nothing left. And that's why we get to the end of a day, or we even get a full night's sleep and we don't feel like we're rested. Yeah, because we've just been draining our battery by being in a highly anxious state. But yeah, so all of these things you're talking about, it probably would be fixed by you recognizing there's nothing wrong. Yeah. And I don't know whether that phrase resonates with you or not, or it's a phrase you would just reject. But recognizing that, hey, it could also, Teresa, I know that you work in a medical environment, so you have access to all of the tests you could possibly have. You're working in exactly the right place if anything did happen to you, So I think recognizing that there doesn't seem to be anything medically wrong is a really good thing. Yeah. And saying, I think all the symptoms I'm feeling are anxiety, that's not anything to worry about. I know some people, they'll be like, oh no, I have anxiety, it turns out. No, you're feeling anxious. Yeah. You haven't tested positive for anxiety. You've tested negative for everything. That's great. Because anxiety is a state that you will go in and out of from moment to moment, from hour to hour. And if you're not worried about anxiety, you'll probably spend most of your time not feeling anxious. Yeah. I think as well, because your job is quite demanding, I would suggest that physical sensation wise, you're going to be much more prone to experiencing day to day the sensations that resemble the things that you're afraid of in terms of the sensations you're afraid of. And sometimes you just got to allow that to be, haven't you? And say, well, that's the territory. Yeah. It's not something going wrong with me. It's just me responding to my environment as we might expect you to. Yeah. But a good bit of self-awareness to recognize that, though, I would suggest, Teresa. Red flag. Good evening. Hi, everyone. Tim. I'm struggling with anxiety, overthinking why I like things. When I enjoy a thing and I hear others call it boring or bad, I question if there's something wrong with me for liking it. Do not do that. There you go. There's the therapeutic advice you've been searching. You like what you like. I think it's really easy, isn't it, to get talked out of who we are because the people around us are different. What I mean by that is, peer pressure, basically. And it isn't just for school times either. We talk about peer pressure at school. We exist with peer pressure for the rest of our lives, especially now that we're online and we can get the opinion of every bugger on the planet in a moment if we want it. Yeah. So it's like, don't question why you like things. I mean, unless you like things that are like illegal, then, in which case, maybe work on that. But and if it's all these, and some things that are benign and that you aren't doing anyone any harm. I remember when I was at school and I really, really wanted to play D&D, but nobody thought that was cool, because it isn't cool. Let's face it. I'm okay with that now, though. But now at 51 years old, I finally get to play D&D, and I wish I'd started when I was a kid. I wish I'd been okay with just saying, well, okay, that's me, guys. If you like that, great. If you don't like that, that's all right as well. I don't need you to be the same as me. But I don't know. If people find what you do boring, good, you're different, I would suggest. Be different. Nobody did it. And nobody, this is a Stranger Things quote, as I remember, and I'll misquote it. But nobody normal ever did anything of consequence. It's the weirdos. It's the that do things differently, that are interesting, that we talk about. So you do like what you like, as long as you're not hurting anyone. I should add that, shouldn't I? Michael, good evening, mate. How are we doing? I get more fear from my thoughts, and it feels so real. Yeah, your thoughts can feel very real, but they're not. They're just thoughts. Never forget that. The subconscious. I remember my first hypnosis mentor saying, your subconscious doesn't necessarily know the difference between imagination and reality. Yeah, because you think about it, a lot of things we're afraid of aren't real things. We're afraid of the things we're imagining. It's quite rare, actually, that we feel fear for the actual thing that's in front of us. Most of our fear and anxiety comes from things that we're imagining could possibly be true, and yet it creates a very real feeling of fear, doesn't it? But there's a simple phrase that I use, and I talk about a lot with my clients. The way it feels is not the way it is. And in so many instances with anxiety, that is the case. It feels like this is going to overwhelm us, it's going to take us out. It feels like we're never going to come out the other side of this. It feels like everything's going to go wrong at any moment. But the way it feels is not the way it is. And it doesn't mean I want you to distrust your own mind, because at the end of the day, all these thoughts are only coming from a part of you that is concerned, is saying, hey, are we okay? Yeah. And those thoughts can feel real, but the way it feels is not the way it is. They're just thoughts. Thoughts cannot hurt you. Yeah. I hope that makes sense. Nev, how do you suggest dealing with depression around not being where you want to be in life due to anxiety holding you back? I would suggest, right, don't pay attention to the depression. Now, this is a weird thing to say, but I've seen a lot of clients who have come to me with anxiety and depression. And then I'll ask the question, okay, if you weren't anxious, if anxiety wasn't an issue for you, would you still feel depressed? And the answer in almost all cases is, well, probably not, because I'm aware that the depression is fueled by anxiety. And what I mean by this is anxiety is like the architect of depression. Anxiety closes off our options. I can't do this anymore because of my anxiety. I can't embark upon that endeavor because of my anxiety. I can't go out with my friends because of my anxiety. And it shrinks the world for us. And then that inevitably creates this situation where, well, all of the options that I do perceive, none of them really make me that happy. The things I want to do that would make me happy aren't an option anymore because of my anxiety. And then, of course, that is the very definition of depression, isn't it? The inability to see the possibility of future happiness. So I would say don't focus on trying to deal with depression, because depression will go when you no longer feel highly anxious. It's just a byproduct of it. You don't have to do separate work on your depression. Yeah, I would suggest, hey, let's challenge the anxious thoughts. Let's change the anxious patterns of response. Because, as soon as we put our focus on the depression and try and do something about that, we're simply allowing the anxiety issue to sit there, when maybe that's where we put our focus. That's the thoughts we challenge. That's the thoughts we change. We open up the world to ourselves again. Then you're probably not depressed, are you? Because now, I've got all these options that I didn't know I had before. I think with depression as well, remember, it's not a sadness. It's not a deep sadness. It's an inability to see the possibility of future happiness. It's more of a numbness. It's more of okay, there's nothing worthy of my motivation or my action. Yeah. So remembering that it's worth remembering that, because that's what you're going to do when you get the other side of any anxiety issue. There'll be loads of things available to you. You don't have to know exactly where the light is. You just have to know it's out there, because that's when your crew, your subconscious, gets busy and it'll find it for you. You know, when I'm working with clients for depression, I'm never trying to say, oh, look, get this hobby or do this instead or change this aspect of your life. Because at the moment, the problem is that their subconscious doesn't regard there as being a light out there. So they've stopped looking. Their mind stopped looking for it. As soon as we accept the truth that their light is out there somewhere, then yeah, your mind's really, really good at finding it. I don't have to point it in the right direction or anything like that. I just have to, make it aware of the truth that, yeah, there is light out there. Yeah. And then we get busy again. We get active in seeking out the solutions. I'm going to have to, and okay, I'm going to finish up with what's on the screen, and then we're probably going to call that it for tonight. And then if you're watching it on playback, or if you've got any questions after that, then please put them in the comments after, put them in the comments of the video once it's up on playback. Ron, had chest pain for the last 14 years. It's constant and doesn't change or move. So I've got health anxiety now. I constantly think I'm having a heart attack. I don't know how to teach my brain I'm okay. Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that, Ron. What a horrible thing to have to go through. Providing, and I'm assuming you've had all the medical tests done to confirm that there is nothing medically wrong, then it's going to be anxiety. Chest pains with anxiety are very common. Yeah, it's all that muscle tension, and also once we have a certain symptom in air quotes, we do that thing of fixating upon it. So we almost, our imagination almost creates it for us even before it's there. So it's like like if you take a magnifying glass and you shine the sun onto something on the ground and it starts to burn a hole in the grass, things like that. Did you do that as a kid? We used to do it on each other's ties for some reason. It was like a badge of honor to have a little pinprick hole in your tie at school. Anyway, and that's what our focus does on a certain sensation. We focus so much on it that it starts to burn a hole. It creates the damage that we're imagining. Yeah. I think, if you feel like you're having a heart attack and you're not, remember that the way it feels is not the way it is. Yeah. If you've had all the medical tests and there's nothing wrong with your heart and nothing wrong with your chest there, then accept that and realize that that's the truth. And know that, yes, your mind can create these symptoms, these physical sensations, simply by your belief system. Yeah, it doesn't. People have a real hard time understanding that your mind can create any sensation and make it real to you that you can imagine. Literally anything you can imagine. Yeah. I was fortunate because I got to learn this from a very direct perspective when I learned hypnosis, where we literally get someone to imagine something to the point where they believe it to be real. But that's what our mind can do at the drop of a hat. If your mind perceives threat from what's going on in your chest here, guess what it'll do? It will create the sensations that you most fear, not because it's trying to mess you up or hurt you or scare you, but because it's fixating so much on that area that it creates the sensations based on the thought that you're having. Yeah. And again, so I've got health anxiety now. Try and avoid that framework. I've got health anxiety, like I've contracted health anxiety. Yeah, you feel anxious about your health. If you word it like that, it sounds a lot more, you would be, wouldn't you? If you'd had chest pains for 14 years, I can see you would be anxious about your health. Yeah. But again, I can't imagine that you haven't had medical tests to clear you here. It's okay. And this is the thing, people who deal with health anxiety, I'm always saying, look, go to the doctor. Absolutely. Because the doctor is where you're going to be able to calm your mind about this. They're going to do tests and they're going to say, hey, good news, nothing wrong with you. All you've got to do then is believe the doctor. Yeah, that's it. And it might seem difficult to, because you think, but surely it can't just be my imagination because it feels physically real. Guess what? That's what your imagination can do. I don't mean you can imagine something so much that you can you can literally feel the effects of your imagination when your imagination is something you believe to be true. Yeah. But so, yeah, I'll reiterate that, though. I'm sorry you've had to be going through that. But, I would suggest that's good news, is that all you're experiencing is an emotional response, because your emotions you can control. If it were a medical thing, wow, that would be something you couldn't directly control, wouldn't it? But you got this. You got this. Right, Michael. I don't feel like I'm real. Feel like I'm out of my body. Yeah, that's derealization, depersonalization. It's a self-defense mechanism from your subconscious. It feels super weird. Is that the right word? Super weird. That's as good as I've got. I think it's scary weird, but it is dissociation is what we have as human beings that helps us survive in certain situations. We dissociate from the trauma. When it gets a little bit real, a little bit too much, a little bit overwhelming, we can do that thing where we step out of the movie and just watch it on the screen rather than living in it. Yeah. And it feels weird, but don't worry, because it's not a malfunction. It just means you've got anxious or stressed to the point where you're like, tilt, a pinball reference there. And you've just, so don't fear that feeling though, because often that's what perpetuates it, is we think there's something wrong. So it creates a higher level of anxiety and thus perpetuates the dissociation. A bit of us says, well, I'm not safe to go back into my body, as it were, because I'm still under threat. So recognize that that's just as weird as it feels. But again, the way it feels is not the way it is. It's not a malfunction. It's not something wrong with you. Right. So I'm gonna. Oh, good evening, Strawberry Polka Dot. Good evening, Molly Ann, Ava. Right. Oh, there's so many. There's still questions coming in, and I wanted to finish at 7, but I'll carry on for 5 more minutes, okay? And then I'm going to have to try and answer them afterwards. Joey, I don't feel like doctors say those things with ill intention at all. I do think sometimes our anxious brain will interpret them as saying more than what they are. I agree with you, Joey, absolutely. I think we interpret their message to us as possibly, something that means more than it actually does. And also, I think oftentimes when a mental health professional or a medical professional says we have some sort of disorder or something like that, they don't explain it to the point where, oh yeah, this is a completely temporary state. You might have a disorder for 5 minutes, literally. Yeah, but we think, oh no, I've got a disorder. I'm, genetically deficient or something like that. My biochemical problem that I've got. No, it's just at the moment you're responding emotionally in a way that we could classify as disordered. That's all it is. Don't, reduce the threat in your mind from that. Molly Ann, here's a nice comment. Sometimes get this feeling I'm going to lose control, but just kind of go through it and then it's gone. It's a stranger. I think a lot of the feelings we get, if we just carry on and we think, oh, that's weird. That's weird. See, I like the way you've worded that. It is strange though. That's okay. We're strange things, us human beings. We have strange thoughts. We do strange things. We have strange feelings, but strange is not dangerous. Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of the time we go through it, find your way out the other side of it. Yeah. If we don't try and deal with it, or we don't try and do anything with it, then it turns out, it was, who knows what it was. Yeah. Again, allowing your thoughts to be where they are and just accepting them and, look on them with curiosity rather than with fear. Right. Teresa, so thankful for your insight there. Better than any therapy. Oh, thank you, Teresa. Appreciate that. Salvo, we put on a longer live, but glad to see the channel growing, Tim. Let's get to our goal of 8K before the end of the year. I want to get to, I'd like to get to 10K before the end of the year, but I think 8K is more realistic at the speed it's growing. But look, if you're watching this video, this is a good place to stop, actually. Apologies to you guys whose questions I haven't got round to. I'll make a note of them. And I will answer them hopefully in the comments, or maybe I'll even start the next live with those questions. So apologies. But look, if you're getting value from this, then I would love to grow the channel, because this isn't my job, YouTube. Okay, I'm not a YouTuber. I do the videos and I do these lives because I recognize there's a lot of people out there that could do with some education about anxiety so that we can reduce anxiety and get control of it. But it's a bit of a side passion project for me. I see clients one-to-one. That's what I do for a living. But it would be lovely to grow the channel to get the message out there, because I still don't see enough people talking about it in the way that I think needs to be spoken about. And, obviously for my own ego, I'd love to have a big YouTube channel. Wouldn't that be great? But really, the purpose behind it is is much deeper than that, and it's much more important than just satisfying my own desire to have thousands of followers on YouTube. Yeah, that doesn't compare to the need for good anxiety education. That's what I'm trying to provide. So if this is of value to you, if you're appreciating this message, please share the video. And if you see one of my other videos, please share that, because sharing it is what actually gets it out to people. That's what tells the algorithm, okay, this is content that people are valuing enough to go out of their way to share it. You know, there's a share button at the bottom of every video. So please do that if you're inclined to. It would always help me out. Put your questions in the comments below. Subscribe if you're enjoying the content, if you're getting something from it, if it's helping, and if you really value what we're talking about here and you like this live format, if you become a member of the channel, then it's £9 a month. To be fair, it's not a lot of money. It's like what is that? That's maybe 2 cups of coffee in a month. Yeah. But you get a weekly live. I know I do these every month on the channel and in the main channel, but I do a weekly members live every Wednesday evening so that we can get to go through questions. And this is why I know some of the people that were commenting here, because it feels like a much closer knit group. We get to go through, which is we get to, have some continuity in what we're talking about from week to week as well. So, and I've, when I first set up the members area, it was like, okay, here's some extra video. There's like 100 odd extra videos as well, including my control system method. And it was just there as, okay, here's a place to put the extra content if you want it. But I do think now, I think it's a very valuable resource now. And I see people getting a lot of value from it. So the membership area is worth your time. Check it out. Even if you just check it out for a month, and if it's not for you, okay, you've lost £9. That's it. But most people that join, they stick with it because they're getting benefit from it. Anyway, I've talked even longer than I thought I was going to there. So look, I'm gonna sign off now. I'm gonna say to everyone, look, have a fantastic weekend. Be kind to yourself, yeah, and grant yourself some time off. We've talked a lot about overwhelm tonight, and that comes from just not allowing ourselves to shut down and relax and take time for ourselves. So make sure you do that this weekend. And as I always say, as I always sign off, always remember, be kind to your mind, and I'll see you next time.